Well, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Encouragers, a new ministry here at Christ Church Cathedral. And let me give you a little background of how this came about. When I was at St. Barnabas and All Saints, and reading up on Barnabas, as many of you know about him, he was the son of encouragement. He had sold his fields and he gave money to the apostles. And then, of course, he went on these journeys with Paul, and once without him. He actually gave Paul a second chance after Paul was criticized for his previous activities against Christians. And then he gave John Mark a second chance after Paul did not want him to go with him. And he lived a life that was full of encouragement. And when I was at St. Barnabas and All Saints, since that was in our name, I thought, encouragement. So Michael Tarby, who some of you may know, from Pip Printing, printed up me a card, that had Richard Baker, Encourager. And when I ran into somebody, I would, that needed it, I would pass it out. Fortunately, we closed faster than I could pass out cards, this came to me, and I'm a member of the Adult Education Committee meeting, as an idea that we could do here. And what is an encourager? Well, it can be a very small thing, and it could be somebody who's having serious problems. Twice today, I ran into people I did not know that were having physical problems. One lady who's having asthma, and I won't say who it is, I'll let her say who it was. I had no idea. And she wanted to tell me. And it's a person who needs encouragement even in our own parish. Sometimes there's a person who needs encouragement because they've had a loss of one. Now mind you, we are not psychologists. That's not the idea, here. It's that people need someone to listen and have God's Holy Spirit come in, play when they do listen. Today, I didn't want to wear this green shirt. I think it makes me look fat, and all that, which I am, I guess, after the holidays. I didn't want to wear it, and Stephanie Rangel in the Peace Camp says, I like that shirt. Okay? That's encouragement. Okay, on a much smaller scale. So there's so many people out there who need encouragement. So this is sort of like a church without walls, a Michael Curry crazy Christians, idea of encouragement. And so, why should we encourage? So I take you to the Being Encourager list of God says so. And these are all kinds of verses. There were 100. I cut it short. Okay, because there are just a couple I want to mention to you. The first one, therefore encourage one another and build one another up, just as you are doing. That's Paul's letter to the Thessalonians. Proverbs, gracious words are like a honeycomb, sweetness to the soul, and health to the body. Hebrews, not neglecting to meet together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near. The one in Romans is really interesting. We who are strong have an obligation to bear with the failings of the weak, and not to please ourselves. Obligation is the word that is used. So, what are some examples in your own mind that you might have of people who have encouraged you where you least expected it? I'll point one out here. David Johnston, okay, who said to me, and I've had my shares of things that have been wrong in my life. I may have it, but it doesn't have me. He doesn't know what an effect that had, on me. but that was a form of encouragement. In my life, I can give you, a couple of examples that I think give you when somebody needs encouragement. I was a public address announcer at the Eastern States Coliseum for the 1971-72 Springfield Kings. I gave up my full-time job in Albany, which I hated, working for WOKO radio, so that I could come home for $5 a game to do what I wanted to do, which was be an announcer. And what happened was that a guy on the radio station, he was called the Strawberry Alarm Clock. He was about 350 pounds, and he was what they call the morning drive guy, which is the good job. Okay, and he made a tape for me, and he sent it. And this job was open only because the guy who did it before had become the public relations director. And I had spent my entire childhood, or a good part of it, hiding from an addicted mother, who was violent and got nastier with every drink. And I had hidden at the Springfield's Indian games at the Eastern States Coliseum. Okay. So this to me was a dream come true. Was I confident for it? No, didn't even practice. Okay, scared, deer in headlights, all of that. The first game at the Coliseum, the guy who controlled the level of the sound had it for what he had for the other guy, who had a big, deep voice. The wires, yes, wires around the glass at the Coliseum. It wasn't the big speakers, around for the people who sat down the lower 3 rows. If you've ever been to the Coliseum, it's got a walk ring around it, okay?
Yeah.
And 3 rows, and they weren't working, that night. I, with no confidence, wouldn't even stand as I do now, and that's probably why I stand. I sat at the chair of the announcer. They had a microphone up here, and I had a sore throat and a cold, and I leaned into it, okay? Not even willing to stand up or to take the mic. Well, this was not good, because nobody could hear me, or couldn't hear me well. And they didn't mind in the old Coliseum days. We think we're tough these days. Oh my goodness, well, where you get all the marbles? In your mouth? That kind of stuff. It was really a tough crowd, okay? So I was feeling horrible. And nobody could hear me. And I was getting it. And I thought I'm going to get fired, on the first day, okay? First game. And so, if you know anything about hockey, and you don't have to know that, with 1 minute to play in the period, you make an announcement, there's 1 minute to play in the period. So at the end of the second period, I grabbed the mic, I stood up, and I went, 1 minute! 5,934 fannies went up in the air. I could see this, okay, from where I was. I could actually see everybody lifting up. And they had just won the Calder Cup the year before, so they were extremely popular. Okay? And it was a big deal. There was only 6 National Hockey League teams before the expansion, and hockey was big here. So I could. Have you ever been in a restaurant where somebody drops the whole tray?
Yeah.
Okay. And then you hear that 5,934 people talking about what a jerk I was. Okay. So, grace of God. Okay. Somebody encouraged me to keep going. Grace of God. They didn't fire me. I did that for 5 years. I ended up helping out the Springfield Olympics, and then I did it there. And Tommy Shea, who was a great writer, in Springfield history, okay, was covering the junior hockey team I was helping. Next thing you know, he said they needed somebody at the paper to work 1 day a week doing college soccer for $50 a month. I came in every day. Next thing you know, I got. How different things would have been if I had got fired, that night. And boy, did I need encouragement. Second piece, these are just stories of my own, okay, that when I was in the wilderness, yes, I spent time in the wilderness, far too long, okay, many years ago. And I stopped in to the church. It's a much longer story than I'm going to bother you with today. Father Summers ended up, was the priest there at the time he passed away, in recent years. And Father Summers said to me, we went to the Dickinson Street, a family dining room for every week for several weeks, in a row. And when he finally heard my whole story, and I actually used this on the cardboard ministry, last week, he said, well, you're in an impossible situation, and impossible situations take a little longer to resolve.
Oh, wow.
And I don't remember anything else, that he told me in all those weeks, but that I remember. Impossible situations take a little bit longer to resolve. So, what is an encourager? Is someone who just inspires, okay? Someone who just listens, someone who doesn't have to be a psychologist. It's that somebody wants to be listened to. And after a while, you could tell, and I could tell with that parishioner this morning, that she wanted to say something. What a way, without spending any money, without having really any obligation, that we as a parish, could help, or we as a cathedral. So, this is the Encourager program, and here is how we plan on working. Now, understand this is only the introduction, to the program. Okay, there is a lot of logistics, that have to be straightened out with it. Okay, the idea is to do what I wanted to do at St. Barnabas All Saints. We have a card printed up. It says Richard Baker, the encourager. It has Christ Church Cathedral on it. Okay, you can put your email, information if you wish. You can put your cell phone if you wish. Don't have to. Just have a church number. Now, I'll tell you why it's important, though, to try to get that email connection, with the person. And this was after a consultation I had yesterday with a good friend of mine who's a biblical counselor. And he said, the problem is, he said, if you just listen and say bye-bye, okay, that anybody can get somebody through the night. Okay, but in the world of spirituality, okay, it may take a longer encouragement. I have a friend of mine, a former writer colleague, whose life is a total mess, and you don't hear from him. What happens is people don't want to talk about it. They hide behind their work. They hide behind other issues. They hide behind these circumstances, and they don't want anything to do with it. The elephant in the room, you've heard of that. I have that in my house right now, my oldest son, that I'm trying to work with. You don't know what to say. You don't know what to do. Okay, so you go read a book, or you do something else. Okay, and that happens, and in some way you have to get that out. So he said that to me, and that meant a lot. Now the second reason is that who benefits from being an encourager? Well, obviously the people you're encouraged. Stephanie Rangel made my day today about this green shirt, okay, which I now think is my best shirt. Okay? But the person who is being encouraged benefits, because they know they are not alone. Okay? Who else benefits? You do. If I'm sitting here moaning about my life, which I've had a tendency to do, on a number of occasions, and it's recently 6 or 8 months ago, with business issues, my son, and all of that. How can you go encourage anybody when you are discouraged yourself? And the Bible tells you not to be. Okay, the Bible tells you not to be. There are detours. I read a book by Tony Evans recently called Detours. Sometimes they're detours. And sometimes God puts a comma on something, and we think it's a period. It's all over. I laugh about cars because if you've ever had a car problem and don't have your car, does that cloud always hang over your head, for the whole day? How am I getting here? Who's gonna pick me up? What about the appointment? Okay, cars do that. That's why I laughed about today with the cars. It's so true. So circumstances, and this is really important, that circumstances are circumstances. God knows what the circumstances are, but you have to get sort of a feeling of the Spirit, to feel okay about that, and so does the other person. Okay, because whatever their circumstances are, okay, they think it's the end. So, I read in a book the other day, a fellow asked another person about their circumstances, and he asked him this way, "Oh, how you doing?" And the guy answered, "Well, I'm doing okay under my circumstances." And the answer to him was, "What are you doing under there?" Okay? And it is so true. And so, with this program, as we get started, there will be a training and prep session, on how to answer things. Again, I want to stress, we are not psychologists. If they need a psychologist or a psychiatrist, that's where they should go. But they should go at least feeling, some confidence, that God is working in their life. So, that is one of the things that will help prepare, for example. Okay, one of the things that one can do without getting into details of all that, is not only hear the person, you can offer to pray with them, at the end. Okay, you can recommend that they count their blessings at the same time, because no blessings are counted when you don't have your car. Okay, you're like Tom, you're riding around the city and looking for it. But Tom had the courage to do that on our own. A lot of people would just say, "I don't have a car." My son's like that. So this is a way that you can also remind them about the the silver lining thing. It's the second word, silver lining, to us. It's Romans 8:28. All things work together for good for those who abide in God and are called, according to purpose. This is a bad thing now. This bad thing may become a good thing. Now there are very serious things. There's losses of loved ones. There's health situations. It doesn't mean those things are going to go away. But to have somebody understand and know that you're a person still worth knowing is such a great feeling for that other person. I had examples of this in my whole life, where I had no confidence coming from the childhood, that I had. And you would get a person who would say something. Now, I used to belong to an Al-Anon group, but it was a special group at night on Mulberry Street. We call it the Mulberry Street Group. And there was alcoholics. There was about 7 of us. And my friend asked if I could get in. There was the alcoholics. There was a woman who liked supplements for her marriage. Many other people. Okay, there was all. I mean, this was not and there were nice people. Okay. And it was run by, and if you don't mind me making fun of, I have some Irish in me, probably quite a bit, okay, and to make fun of a stereotype Irishman from Worcester, Mass. White hair, okay, his father was a prominent politician. He had been an alcoholic. He later died with diabetes, had both legs cut off and all that, but he used to come from New Hampshire, and he worked in Lawrence, Mass, as a counselor, there. And I always remember these little, it's just one word, one phrase sometimes. And when something good happened, he used to call me Rich, when something good happened in your life, or he used to come back with candy from York Beach, if you've ever been to York Beach, they have that place where they make the, they make.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the candy.
The taffy.
And yes, the taffy. He would say, Rich, those are the little nuggets, okay? And every time I have something good in my life, I hear that. Rich, those are the little nuggets, in my life. So we also help people remember there's nuggets going on, as well. And those are some of the things that, that can be done. Now, do you have to go out and find these people? No. You'll know. I knew this morning, okay? You'll be able to tell, after a while, somebody who wants to tell you something. And it's so important for them to be able, or else they keep it in themselves, the bitterness. And Satan knows how to jump on that. It's never going to be better, it's going to be horrible, okay, blah, blah, blah. So this is a spiritual warfare, for some people, in that they need the confidence and know that there is a God and that they have somebody they can email, okay, or call. So I'll give you one more example. In our building, where my office is, it's a office park type of building, so there's more than one company. And there was a lady there working at night, and I tend to talk to everybody, in the building, because it distracts me from, what I really need to worry about. So anyway, she's there with her blue uniform, and she had gotten her degree from AIC. Was working at Mass Mutual, didn't like it. Of course, I have a lot of familiarity with, the financial world, so, kind of, talk to her about that. And then we started talking about our family, I don't know why. And I needed to talk about my son. So I did. I was worried about him, how he's, depressed, he's motivated, he went to Afghanistan, he's got Asperger's syndrome, he just plays video games, all that kind of stuff. Okay? And I don't have the answers for that yet. I'm hoping to get it. Okay? And so she says, well, I have a 16-year-old son who we know is depressed, and we're worried, that he's going to commit suicide. Just walking in the hallway. Okay? I didn't have a card, or encourage a card. I don't always see her that. I don't even know if she's still working there. Okay? But that's the type of person that, that is. But it also can be somebody who has just got a new job, like the one I almost lost, at the Coliseum. It could be a person going into the service, and of course Craig here, with all his years of, service, are coming back home from it. The owner of the Springfield Indians, who was very controversial, Peter Cooney, and I were kind of close because I covered the team, and we used to have lunch all the time. And he had a son, okay, who was in Iraq and flying, planes and all of that. And Peter is a micromanager to the extreme. So I asked him one day, I said, Peter, how do you handle, that? Not good, he said. Let's put it like this. When Jonathan rode on a tricycle, I followed him around the block. Okay? On the day my son was scheduled to go overseas, he came over the house. I'll never forget that. Okay, I'll never forget that. It was so nice, to wish Michael, well. Those are the little nuggets. And Rabbi Shapiro said today, I didn't want to take the time to dwell on this, but he's so right. You don't know what's going on in somebody's, life, okay? And, by the way, you can encourage other parishioners. It doesn't have to be just everybody outside, okay? And there's no quota, there's no nothing, okay? However, you're doing God's work. Problem that we always had at our old church, as Francine would know, somebody would come in and was new for the first time, and either one or two things would happen. We would ignore them because we're so scared they want to be left alone, or we'd tackle them and ask them if they want to be the head of the youth group. We actually had a guy who did that to a Springfield College student. So there is work needed outside of our walls, as Tom had said. I think we're 80% faithless, in this area. And what a way to make people feel good. So, again, how does it work? Just write your name on it. Encourage her. And you can have the on it and say, listen, it's great talking, I keep in touch. And who else benefits from that? The church. Because it's a ministry that we're doing. It's not going to all of a sudden bring in hundreds of people, into the parish. However, if we have a special event, okay, we want to invite them at Christmas, we have their email, how you doing, okay, we thought we'd have, we have someone, to send it to. And we're helping people, which is what we're supposed to do. So as Rabbi Shapiro said today, good, well done, faithful servants. Why is this important to me? Okay, on the selfish side, I'm still bothered horribly about the closing of our St. Barnabas and All Saints Church. I thought that would go away by now. It hasn't.
Nope.
I drive by. When I drive by Oakland Street, I don't look to see if the stained glass windows, are still there or not. I did look kind of see that the red door was there. But in today's society, we just can't open up the red door and let everybody, all the Episcopalians come in. They're not out there. Okay, there are other people. Going back to Peter, okay, who would be shocked I'd be referring to him in a religious building. Okay. Bruce Landon was the general manager, and Bruce used to say to me, Peter just thinks you can just open up the doors, swing the doors open, and everyone's coming in. But the problems in this world are not inside the doors. They can be, okay, and they have them, okay, but they're outside, the doors as well. So that is, that's the nuts and bolts of it. This is just an introduction. Okay, there's not going to be any form here that says sign your life away. You're going to encourage people, every moment of every day. But you should keep it in mind, because people are going through, through tough times. And I have my email, there. If you want to have questions asked, if you want to tell me you'd be interested anyway, in person, that's okay. But it's something that's going to be ongoing. We're not going to let this go, and be one or two meetings and say, okay, not enough people sign up. It's going to take as long as it takes. Okay? And that's something. Yes, Spence.
Dick,
Yeah.
I think everyone has the same question.
Yeah.
Do we have to buy our own green shirt, or are you going to issue it to us?
Hey!
You can wear any color.
Okay, I suppose if it's the summer, and you have a green shirt that said encouragers, okay, on the white Christ Church Cathedral, it's not such a bad idea. All kidding aside, though, there was a reason I wore green today. Okay? I needed encouragement before I came here. The friend who was counseling me last night on some of these things, again, he's a biblical counselor and he's great. And he's the one that told me, that you can always make somebody good for just one night, but he actually prayed for this meeting, with me at the end of our conversation. And I wanted the prayer to go, please don't botch it up, okay, but he actually, we actually did. The power of God is tremendous. Getting back, and I'm not whining about my background. My background led to good things. Romans 8:28, and I wasn't very 8:28-ish, for quite a while. But here's a kid who, I listen to Dodger games on the West Coast as well. That's why I'm a big Dodger fan, because that hit. My mother used to come in at 2 or 3 in the morning, open the door. My father had moved, ran away, came back, went to New York City, got a job, only came home on weekends. Okay, and again, I don't do this to whine, but he would call every night at 10 o'clock. He never knew what he was going to get. Swearing at her, whining or whatever. She'd smoke cigarettes. She'd take Rheingold extra dry beer and Imperial whiskey shots as soon as you get home.
Wow.
She was a nurse right over here on 38th School Street for a pediatrician, Dr. Picorni. So she gave Head Start shots in the morning, and she came home and immediately took hers. Every drink she got worse, every drink. So I used to have to take a tin cabinet and put it across a French door so that when she opened it up, she couldn't open it open. And I was there really alone, probably my teens, because my father was working in New York and my 2 half-brothers, had moved away. And so that's when all I cared about was Springfield hockey games. And God then, put me in a position, to actually do that. And then I went on to cover the team for 17 years. And God then, put me in a position, to actually do that. And then I went on to cover the team for 17 years. I owe God now, okay, if there's such a thing. I know He forgives us for all our sins, but one of the other reasons I want to do this is not only to be a legacy for my own parish that was continued on from, but I believe that you want to go out, better than you went in. It's how you finish, not how you start. And that's why this particular ministry is important to me. And I need to be encouraged all the time. Okay? To see me, shirt here, should I leave it out? You can leave them out these days, should I tuck it in? This all went on this morning. Okay? And God sent Stephanie Rangel in, okay, to, tell me it's okay. See, in the 80s it was I'm okay, you're okay. And it was very secular, I'm okay, you're okay. Our I'm okay, you're okay is from God. And the card is like a business card, but it's God's business. Not our business. And that is the idea of it. When I first presented the idea to the committee, and Tom was there, and I was telling them, and you can also tell people how God's worked in your life, in similar situations. And Tom said, geez, you're teetering on evangelism. And I said, is that bad? And he said, no. And so he liked the idea. So that's the introduction, for you. And I hope you would consider being an encourager. Because man, do we need encouragement. I find chances to do it I get interns, and Stephanie Rangel was our youngest ever intern, in our business, paid intern, a couple of years ago. Okay, and it was such a good feeling. And we get other interns, and you give them, really life advice as well, and the real world that goes on in our business, not the, the paper, or just the academic work. But there's so many out there. It could be a teacher at a new school. We had a teacher just get abused at St. Barnabas and All Saints, but a teacher used to get abused by the children at Forts Park. Awful. Okay, and like to talk about it. Like to talk about it, needed to talk about it. Okay, she's now retired and happy. But there's so many people who work in healthcare. There's so much negativity on TV. The politics, the hate, this group, that group, the blah, blah, blah. Okay, and sometimes people just need, as it says here, gracious words are like a honeycomb, sweetness to the soul, and health to the body. And there's a whole bunch of that. How about the Proverbs 12:25? Anxiety in a man's heart weighs him down, but a good word makes him glad. All over. They're all over the Bible. So, there's websites, about this. And I took one, from, on the second, on one of your handouts, it's two-sided, just so you know. Okay, there's or did I just, what is this, two-sided? Yeah, join the encouragers, and from the Crossway, and boy, this really hit me. Just a look, a pat on the back or a smile can make a great difference in the day. The Bible says, "Give, and it shall be given unto you," by Luke. And so, and it helps you. I used to work at Sears, and I got to travel around with a guy they called the preacher, because he wore a black suit all the time. He was the head of like a zone thing. And I was telling him what I thought of this and what I thought of that. And then, what my employee, would say, he goes, "Never mind what you think. It doesn't matter, it's what she thinks, that counts." And that was so true. So there's all these people, when you get old enough, and you pass the wisdom date of birthday, that I just did, okay, in November, okay, all this stuff, if I only knew this, 20 or 30, years ago. But it's how you go out, okay, not how you start. And you never know when someone like David Johnston, will end up giving you a tidbit that you'll remember for life. Any other questions? Not gonna throw anything at me? It's not like the Blues Brothers, or anything like that? Okay. Feel free to email me, call, see me at a church. This is ongoing, okay, and we'll be updating everybody. And just encourage somebody today, even for a minute.
Thank you.